They called her trash. They laughed at her thrift store dress. They whispered that she was dragging her husband down into the gutter. Sarah stood in the middle of the most exclusive ballroom in New York City, surrounded by billionaires who treated her like a stain on their silk carpets. She wanted to disappear, she wanted to run, but she didn't know that the man holding her hand, the man everyone thought was a broke, struggling mechanic, was about to drop a nuclear bomb on the entire room. You think you know what power looks like? Wait until you see what happens when a sleeping lion wakes up to defend his mate. This is the story of how the mocked wife became the queen. The envelope looked like it had been delivered to the wrong house. It was heavy, cream-colored cardstock with gold leaf edging, smelling faintly of vanilla and old money. It sat on the chipped formica counter of the tiny, one-bedroom apartment in Queens, looking aggressively out of place next to a stack of unpaid electric bills and a half-empty loaf of store-brand bread. Sarah wiped her hands on a rag, grease staining the fabric. She had just finished a double shift at the diner, and her feet were throbbing in a rhythm that matched the flickering neon sign outside their window. "Alex?" she called out, her voice raspy. "Alex, what is this?" Alexander emerged from the bedroom. He was a tall man, broad-shouldered, with messy dark hair and eyes that always seemed to be laughing at a joke no one else heard. He was wearing a stained t-shirt and jeans that had been patched more times than she could count. To the world, Alexander Alex Sterling was a nobody, a freelance mechanic who fixed classic cars for rich people but couldn't seem to afford one for himself. He walked over, wrapping his arms around Sarah's waist from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. "That," he said casually, "is our date night." Sarah picked up the card. Her fingers trembled slightly. The 50th Annual Kensington Gala, hosted at the Pierre Hotel. Black tie. "The Kensington Gala?" Sarah spun around, staring at him. "Alex, are you insane? Tickets to this thing cost more than our rent for a year. Did you steal this?" Alex laughed, a deep rumble in his chest. "Ye of little faith. One of my clients, Mr. Rutherford, the guy with the '67 Shelby Cobra, he couldn't make it, gave me his invites, said he wanted someone who actually appreciates the art of living to go in his place." Sarah looked back at the invitation. The Kensington Gala was the event of the season. It was where the titans of industry, the celebrities, and the old blood of New York society gathered to pat themselves on the back. It was a world of diamonds, caviar, and judgment. "We can't go," Sarah said, dropping the invite back onto the counter as if it were hot. "Why not? Look at us, Alex. Look at this apartment." She gestured wildly at the peeling wallpaper. "I don't have a dress. You don't have a tuxedo. We don't belong there. It's like inviting a pigeon to a peacock show." Alex took her face in his grease-stained hands. His expression shifted, the playfulness vanishing, replaced by a fierce intensity that always made Sarah's breath hitch. "You are not a pigeon, Sarah. You work harder than anyone in that room. You volunteer at the shelter on weekends. You take care of your sick mother. You have more class in your little finger than they have in their entire trust funds." "But I already rented a tux," he interrupted, grinning again. "And I know you still have that emerald silk fabric you found at the estate sale last year, the one you were sling for a special occasion." Sarah bit her lip. She did have the fabric. It was a vintage roll of raw silk, a deep, shimmering forest green. She had been terrified to cut into it. "I can sew," Sarah whispered, the temptation creeping in. She was a talented seamstress, a skill she kept hidden, mostly used for mending Alex's work clothes. "Then sew." Alex kissed her forehead. "Just for one night, Sarah. Let's pretend we're royalty. Let's go drink their expensive champagne and laugh at their bad jokes. Please? For me?" It was the "for me" that did it. Sarah could deny herself anything, but she could never say no to Alex. He worked so hard, coming home with bruised knuckles and an aching back, yet he never complained. If he wanted to play Prince Charming for a night, she would be his Cinderella, even if she knew the clock would eventually strike midnight. For the next 3 nights, Sarah didn't sleep. She draped the fabric over her mannequin, a duct-tape thing she'd rescued from a closing department store. She didn't use a pattern. She let the fabric speak to her. She designed a gown that was modest yet striking, with a high neck, long sleeves, and a back that plunged daringly low. It was elegant, timeless, and completely out of fashion for the trendy, skin-bearing styles of modern New York. On the night of the gala, Sarah stood before the cracked bathroom mirror. She had pulled her hair back into a sleek chignon, securing it with a cheap rhinestone clip. She wore no jewelry other than her simple wedding band, a thin circle of gold that had belonged to Alex's grandmother. "Wow," Alex breathed from the doorway. He looked devastating in the rented tuxedo. It was a little tight across the shoulders, but it made him look like James Bond on a budget. "I look okay?" Sarah asked, smoothing the silk over her hips. "You look like a queen," Alex said softly. He offered her his arm. "Shall we?" They walked down the 4 flights of stairs because the elevator was broken again. Outside, the New York air was crisp. Sarah looked around for a taxi. "Ah, actually," Alex scratched the back of his neck. "Mr. Rutherford, he also let me borrow the car for the night. Since I just finished fixing the transmission," he pointed to the curb. Sitting there, gleaming under the streetlights like a dark predator, was a vintage 1967 Shelby Cobra, midnight blue. Sarah's jaw dropped. "Alex, if you scratch that, we'll be in debt for the next 3 lifetimes." "I won't scratch it. I know this car better than its owner." Alex winked, opening the door for her. "Get in, madam." As they roared toward Manhattan, the wind whipping through the open top, ruining her hair. But she didn't care. Sarah felt a surge of adrenaline. For a moment, she allowed herself to believe the fantasy. She wasn't Sarah the waitress. She was Sarah Sterling, a woman of mystery and elegance. But as the glittering lights of the Pierre Hotel came into view, and she saw the line of limousines and the paparazzi flashing their cameras, the anxiety returned. It settled in her stomach like a stone. She didn't know that inside that hotel, her past was waiting for her, and it was holding a glass of Chardonnay and a grudge. The valet looked at the vintage Shelby with a mixture of confusion and respect. But when his eyes landed on Alex and Sarah, the expression curdled into something resembling pity. "Invitation?" the doorman asked, not bothering to make eye contact. He was a man with a clipboard who wielded it like a sword. Alex produced the heavy card. The doorman scanned it, frowned, flipped it over, and then looked at a list. "Mr. Rutherford is not. Ah, you are the proxies." He said the word proxies, the way one might say termites. "That's right," Alex said, his voice calm, unbothered. "Alexander and Sarah Sterling. Right. In you go." He waved them through quickly, as if afraid their poverty might be contagious to the guests behind them. Inside, the ballroom was a kaleidoscope of excess. Crystal chandeliers the size of small cars hung from the ceiling. The air smelled of expensive perfume, truffles, and desperation. Waiters in white gloves moved like ghosts through the crowd, offering flutes of champagne that cost more than Sarah's monthly grocery budget. Sarah gripped Alex's arm tightly. "Everyone is staring," she whispered. "They're staring because you're the most beautiful woman here," Alex whispered back. "They're staring because my dress is homemade, and I'm wearing shoes from Payless," she hissed. It was true. While Sarah's dress was technically beautiful, it lacked the aggressive branding of the other guests. Everywhere she looked, she saw Dior, Gucci, Versace. Women were draped in diamonds that caught the light and blinded you. Sarah felt small. She felt like an imposter. "Let's get a drink," Alex said, steering her toward the bar. They were halfway across the room when a voice cut through the ambient chatter. A high, nasal voice that sent a shiver of recognition down Sarah's spine. "Oh my God, is that Sarah Jenkins?" Sarah froze. She knew that voice. She hadn't heard it in 5 years, but it still haunted her nightmares. She turned slowly. Standing near a towering ice sculpture of a swan was Jessica Winthrop. Jessica had been Sarah's roommate in college for 1 semester. The semester before, Sarah had to drop out because her father got sick and the money ran out. Jessica came from old steel money. She was blonde, painfully thin, and wearing a red dress that was barely there. And standing next to her with a hand possessively on her waist, was Bradford Montgomery, the man Sarah had thought she would marry, the man who had dumped her via text message the day after she dropped out of college, telling her that he needed a partner who fit his future trajectory. "Hello, Jessica," Sarah said, her voice shaking slightly. She stood up straighter, channeling the dignity Alex had talked about. Jessica's eyes raked over Sarah, analyzing every inch. She spotted the slight fray at the hem of the silk, where Sarah's sewing machine had jammed. She noticed the lack of jewelry. She saw the rough texture of Alex's hands. A cruel smile spread across Jessica's face. "Wow, it really is you. I thought you were serving hors d'oeuvres? Or are you coat check tonight?" Brad laughed. It was a dry, hollow sound. He swirled his scotch, looking at Alex with open disdain. "Jess, be nice. Maybe they won a radio contest." "We were invited," Alex said. His voice was low, but it carried a weight that made Brad blink. "Just like you." "Invited?" Jessica let out a shrill giggle. "By who? The janitor?" She took a step closer to Sarah, lowering her voice to a mock whisper. "Honey, seriously, that dress, did you make it out of curtains? It's charming in a Sound of Music kind of way, but this is black tie, not a costume party." Sarah felt the tears pricking her eyes. She wanted to say something witty, something cutting, but her throat had closed up. The shame was burning her cheeks. "I think it's beautiful," Alex said, stepping between Sarah and Jessica. He towered over the smaller woman. "And unlike you, she didn't have to buy her elegance off a rack." Jessica's face flushed pink. "Excuse me? Do you know who I am? My father owns the building you probably live in." "I doubt that." Alex smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "We live in Queens." "Queens," Brad guffawed, slapping his thigh. He turned to the group of people, gathering around them, other wealthy vultures, sensing blood in the water. "Did you hear that? Queens? Oh, this is rich. We have tourists." The circle tightened. Sarah felt the walls closing in. The whispers started. "Who are they? Look at his shoes. Scuffed. She looks like a librarian. How did they get past security?" "Sarah," Brad said, stepping forward, his tone shifting to patronizing pity. "Look, it's been a long time. I don't want to see you embarrass yourself. Why don't you guys head out? I can give you $20 for a cab if your friend's truck breaks down." He pulled a crisp $20 bill from his pocket and held it out to Alex. The room went silent. This was the moment, the ultimate insult. Sarah looked at the money, then at Brad's smug face. She looked at Jessica, who was smirking behind her champagne flute. She waited for Alex to punch him. She was terrified Alex would punch him. But Alex didn't punch him. Alex looked at the $20 bill, then looked Brad in the eye. He reached out and took the bill. The crowd gasped. Sarah felt her heart shatter. He took the money? Alex folded the bill neatly, once, twice. Then, he reached into the breast pocket of Brad's $3,000 tuxedo and tucked the bill inside, as if it were a pocket square. "Keep it, Bradford," Alex said softly. "You're going to need it more than I will by the end of the night." Brad blinked, confused. "What is that supposed to mean?" "It means," Alex said, turning his back on them and taking Sarah's hand, "that the air in here is stale. Come on, Sarah. Let's go get some fresh air on the terrace before the speeches start." He pulled her away, leaving a stunned Brad and a fuming Jessica in their wake. As they walked away, Sarah heard Jessica hiss, loud enough for half the room to hear. "Don't worry, Brad. They're nobodies. Wait until the auction starts. We'll humiliate them properly. I'm going to make sure everyone knows she's just a gold digger who settled for copper." Sarah trembled as they reached the balcony doors. "Alex, we have to leave. Please. They're going to destroy us." Alex opened the glass doors, the noise of the party fading as the city sounds of New York greeted them. He turned to her, and for the first time, Sarah saw a cold, hard, dangerous light in his eyes. "No, Sarah," he said. "We aren't leaving. In fact, I'm just getting started." He checked his watch, a battered old Timex. 10 minutes, he muttered to himself. 10 minutes until showtime. "What happens in 10 minutes?" Sarah asked, wiping a tear from her cheek. Alex smiled, and this time, it was a smile of a wolf who has just cornered a sheep. "In 10 minutes, The owner of Sterling Enterprises, the company that owns this hotel, the charity being supported tonight, and the bank that holds the mortgage on Brad's penthouse, is scheduled to make a surprise appearance. Sarah looked at him, confused. Sterling Enterprises? But your last name is Sterling. It is, Alex said simply. Sarah froze. Alex, you fix cars. I fix cars because I like cars, Sarah. It keeps me sane. It keeps me grounded. And it helped me find the only woman in the world who loved me when she thought I had nothing. He took her hands. I didn't tell you because I wanted to be sure. And tonight? Tonight, they didn't just insult my wife. They insulted the future chairwoman of the Sterling Foundation. Sarah's brain was short-circuiting. You're a billionaire? Alex shrugged. Technically, yes. But right now, I'm just a husband who is very, very angry. Suddenly, the balcony doors opened. A man in a headset rushed out, looking panicked. He spotted Alex and nearly collapsed with relief. Mr. Sterling, sir, we've been looking everywhere. The board is waiting. The teleprompter is set. Are you ready to go on stage? Alex looked at Sarah. Ready to go meet your subjects, my queen. Sarah looked at the man in the headset, then back at her husband, the man who ate store-brand bread and drove a truck, the man who had just revealed he owned the skyline. She took a deep breath, smoothing the vintage green silk of her dress. Let's go, she said. The walk from the terrace to the backstage holding area felt like a hallucination. Sarah's heels clicked against the marble floor, a staccato rhythm that matched her racing heart. Everywhere they walked, staff members, people who had ignored them or looked down on them just minutes ago, were now practically bowing. The hotel manager, a frantic man named Mr. Henderson, was wiping sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Mr. Sterling, sir, we were worried. The board members are seated. The silent auction is stalled. We didn't know if you were indisposed. Henderson's eyes darted to Sarah, then to Alex's worn knuckles, confusion warring with deference. I was merely observing the atmosphere, Henderson, Alex said. His voice had changed. The casual, joking lilt of the mechanic was gone, replaced by a baritone resonance that commanded the air around him. And I have to say, the atmosphere is acidic. Henderson paled. Sir, we'll discuss personnel changes later. Right now, I have a speech to give. Alex stopped just behind the heavy velvet curtains that separated them from the main stage. He turned to Sarah. The backstage area was dark, illuminated only by the blue glow of monitor screens and the blinking lights of soundboards. Sarah looked at her husband, really looked at him. Alex, she whispered, her voice trembling, is this real? Or am I going to wake up in our apartment with the radiator hissing? Alex reached out and cupped her face. His hands, usually smelling of motor oil and Gojo soap, now felt like the hands of a stranger, yet his touch was the same, gentle, protective, to Sinan. It's real, Sarah. My grandfather built this company. My father expanded it. When he died, I took over, but I hated the life. The sycophants, the fake friends, the women who only wanted me for the black card in my wallet. So, I stepped away. I put a board in charge, and I went to find something real. And you became a mechanic? I like fixing broken things, he smiled, a ghost of his old self. And then I met you. You were working double shifts, tired, wearing that uniform that was 2 sizes too big, and you were still the kindest person in the diner. You gave your tips to the homeless guy outside. You didn't care about money. You cared about people. Sarah felt tears welling up again. You lied to me. I omitted the truth. I wanted to be loved for me, not for the Sterling name. And you did. You loved the grease monkey with the empty bank account. You loved the man, not the myth. He kissed her forehead. I'm sorry I hid it. But tonight, I needed you to see them for what they are. And I needed them to see you for what you are. Mr. Sterling, the stage manager whispered urgently, tapping his headset. 30 seconds. Stay here, Alex commanded softly. Watch the monitors. When I call you, you come out. Do not look down. Do not hide. You walk out there like you own the place. Because, Sarah, you do. He straightened his bow tie, buttoned his jacket, and transformed. His posture shifted. He grew 2 inches taller. The mechanic was gone. The Titan had arrived. Out in the ballroom, the lights dimmed. The chatter died down, replaced by the clinking of silverware and the rustle of expensive fabrics. At table 12, near the front, Jessica Winthrop was busy typing a text message. She nudged Brad. "I just posted a photo of her dress on my story," she snickered, showing him the screen. Caption: "When the maid gets lost on the way to the laundry room, it already has 50 likes." Brad chuckled, swirling his drink. "You're terrible, Jess. But honestly, it's just sad. They really thought they could fit in here. It's almost cruel of us to let them stay." "I hope security escorts them out," Jessica sighed, scanning the room. "It ruins the aesthetic. I mean, did you see his hands? Disgusting." Suddenly, the voice of the announcer boomed through the speakers, vibrating in everyone's chest. "Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, please welcome the chairman of the board, the majority shareholder of Sterling Enterprises, and your host for the evening, Mr. Alexander Sterling IV." The spotlight hit the center of the stage. The heavy curtains parted. Jessica frowned. "Sterling? I thought the chairman was that old guy, Mr. Galloway." "Galloway retired last month," Brad said, looking bored. "I heard the heir was some recluse, probably some trust fund kid who's never worked a day in his—" Brad stopped. The man walking into the spotlight wasn't an old man. He wasn't a nervous, pale recluse. He was tall. He was broad-shouldered. He walked with a predator's grace, and he was wearing a tuxedo that looked suspiciously familiar. Jessica dropped her phone. It landed in her soup, splashing bisque onto the tablecloth, but she didn't notice. "Brad?" she choked out. "Brad? That's the mechanic." Brad stared. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. He squinted, trying to make the image fit his reality. It was impossible. The guy who fixed his transmission? The guy he had just tipped $20? Alex walked to the podium. He gripped the sides of it, leaning forward. The silence in the room was absolute. You could hear a pin drop. He scanned the crowd, his eyes moving like searchlights, until they locked onto table 12. He smiled. It was terrifying. "Good evening," Alex said. His voice was deep, amplified by the speakers, rolling over the audience like thunder. "Thank you all for coming to the 50th Kensington Gala." He paused, letting the silence stretch. "I know many of you have never seen my face. I prefer it that way. I prefer to work with my hands. I prefer the honesty of an engine to the complexities of high society." A nervous titter ran through the crowd. "However," Alex continued, his tone hardening, "tonight, I decided to attend in person. I wanted to see, with my own eyes, the caliber of people my family's foundation supports. I wanted to see if the elegance of your clothing matched the elegance of your souls." He leaned back, looking casual, yet radiating power. "I must say, I am disappointed." The room went cold. People exchanged glances. Was this part of the speech? "Tonight, I walked among you," Alex said. "Not as Alexander Sterling, the billionaire, but as Alex, a simple man with a simple life. And what I found was not charity. It was not kindness. It was a shark tank." Jessica was shaking. She was physically shaking. She grabbed Brad's arm, digging her nails into his expensive jacket. "We have to leave," she hissed. "Brad, we have to go now." "We can't," Brad whispered back, his face gray. "If we leave now, it looks like an admission of guilt. Everyone is watching," Alex continued, his voice rising. "I saw guests mocking those with less. I saw judgments passed based on the brand of a shoe or the label on a dress. I saw a man offer a mechanic $20 to leave, thinking that poverty is a disease that can be cured with spare change." A collective gasp went through the room. Heads turned. People began to whisper. Alex reached into his breast pocket. He pulled out the crisp $20 bill Brad had given him. He held it up to the light. "To the gentleman who gave me this," Alex said, his voice dripping with ice, "I believe you're sitting at table 12. Every head in the ballroom swiveled toward table 12. The spotlight operator, sensing the drama, swung a beam of light onto the table. Brad froze like a deer in headlights. He was blinded by the light, blinking rapidly, sweat instantly beading on his forehead. Jessica tried to shrink behind the centerpiece, covering her face with her napkin. "Mr. Montgomery, isn't it?" Alex asked pleasantly. "Bradford Montgomery, Director of Acquisitions at—" "Let me check. Montgomery Holdings?" Brad stood up, his legs wobbly. "Mr. Sterling, it was a misunderstanding. A joke." "A joke," Alex repeated. "You thought it was funny to humiliate a man you thought was beneath you. You thought it was amusing to mock a woman because her dress wasn't bought on Fifth Avenue." Alex crushed the $20 bill in his fist. "That woman," Alex said, his voice dropping to a reverent hush, "is the reason I am standing here. She is the reason I wake up in the morning. She sewed that dress with her own hands, stitch by stitch, with more love and talent than any designer you people worship." He turned to the wings of the stage. He extended his hand. "Sarah, come out here, please." Sarah took a deep breath. She remembered what Alex had said. "Walk like you own the place." She stepped out from the curtains. The green vintage silk caught the stage lights, shimmering like liquid emerald. The outdated cut suddenly looked regal, timeless, distinct from the sea of revealing modern gowns in the audience. She held her head high, though her knees were knocking together. She walked to the podium. Alex took her hand and kissed it in front of 500 of the most powerful people in New York. "Ladies and gentlemen," Alex announced, "I would like you to meet my wife, Sarah Sterling." The silence broke. A few people started clapping tentatively at first, then louder. The realization hit them. This wasn't just some random woman. This was the mistress of the Sterling Empire. Alex held up a hand to silence them. He wasn't done. "My wife," Alex continued, looking directly at Jessica, who was now weeping silently into her napkin, "was called Trash tonight. She was told she looked like a maid. She was told she didn't belong." He paused, looking at Sarah with adoration. "In a room full of people pretending to be important, she is the only one who doesn't have to pretend. You all wear your wealth on your wrists and your necks. She wears her wealth in her heart." He turned back to the audience, his expression turning stony. "There is a new rule for the Sterling Foundation. We do not accept money from bullies. We do not do business with those who lack basic human decency." He looked at Brad. "Mr. Montgomery, I believe your firm has a pending loan application with Sterling Bank? A refinancing deal for your family's estate?" Brad was trembling so hard the silverware on the table rattled. "Mr. Sterling, please, let's discuss this privately." "I think we can settle it now," Alex said. "Denied." The word rang out like a gunshot. "And," Alex continued, turning his gaze to Jessica, "Miss Winthrop, I believe you work for Vogue as a junior fashion editor?" Jessica looked up, her mascara running down her face. She nodded mutely. "It would be a shame," Alex mused, "if the biggest advertiser in your magazine, Sterling Luxury Goods, decided to pull all their ads because they didn't appreciate the taste of the editorial staff." Jessica let out a sob. "Get out," Alex said. It wasn't a shout. It was a simple, flat command. "Both of you, take your $20, take your judgments, and get out of my sight. You are ruining the view for my queen." Security guards materialized out of the shadows. They didn't need to be told twice. They flanked table 12. "Sir? Ma'am?" a burly guard said, reaching for Brad's elbow. "This way?" Brad looked around for support, but the shark tank had turned. The same people who had laughed at his jokes 5 minutes ago were now staring at him with disgust, desperate to distance themselves from the sinking ship. As Brad and Jessica were escorted out, Jessica crying, Brad, stumbling, the ballroom erupted. It wasn't polite applause this time. It was a roar. It was the sound of sycophants, realizing who the new power was. Yes, but it was also the sound of justice. Sarah stood there, the lights blinding her, the applause washing over her. She looked at Alex. He wasn't looking at the crowd. He was looking at her, a small, private smile on his face. "I told you," he whispered, leaning into the microphone so only she could hear. "You're the only one who matters." But the night wasn't over. As the applause died down and the music swelled, a new figure emerged from the side of the stage. It was a woman, older, elegant, carrying a velvet box. "There is one more thing," Alex said to the crowd. "A sterling tradition." He took the box. He opened it. Inside sat the sterling star, a diamond necklace that had been in the vault for 40 years. It was legendary. It was priceless. And Alex was unclasping it. "Turn around," he whispered to Sarah. She turned, her back to the audience. She felt the cold metal against her skin, the weight of the diamonds settling around her neck. "They mocked your lack of jewelry," Alex's voice boomed. "Let them look now." He turned her back around. The diamonds blazed under the stage lights, outshining everything else in the room. But they didn't outshine Sarah's eyes. She looked out at the sea of faces, and for the first time in her life, she didn't feel poor. She didn't feel like the girl who dropped out of college. She felt like a queen, she whispered. "Long live the queen," Alex said. And then he kissed her. The sun that streamed through the cracked blinds of their queen's apartment felt different the next morning. It wasn't the soft, forgiving light of a normal Tuesday. It was an interrogator's lamp. Sarah woke up with a headache that had nothing to do with alcohol. She had barely touched her champagne the night before, and everything to do with the adrenaline crash. She rolled over, expecting to see Alex in his usual spot, perhaps scrolling through car parts on his phone. The bed was empty. Panic, cold and sharp, spiked in her chest. Was it a dream? She looked at the bedside table. There, resting on a velvet cushion that looked absurd next to her chipped coffee mug, was the sterling star. The diamonds caught the stray sunbeams and fractured them into 1,000 rainbows across the peeling wallpaper. It wasn't a dream. "Good morning, Mrs. Sterling." Alex walked in from the kitchen. He wasn't wearing his usual grease-stained undershirt. He was wearing a crisp white button-down and dark slacks, holding a tray with coffee, scrambled eggs, and a newspaper. "Don't look at the paper yet," he said, setting the tray down on the bed. He looked tired, but his eyes were alert, scanning the street below through the gap in the curtains. "Why?" Sarah sat up, pulling the duvet around her. "Is it bad?" "It's explosive," Alex admitted. He sat on the edge of the bed. "Sarah, we need to talk about logistics. Our life, as we knew it, ended at 9 p.m. last night." Sarah grabbed the remote and turned on the small TV in the corner. The local news anchor was practically vibrating with excitement. Behind her, a B-roll clip played on a loop. Sarah walking onto the stage in her green dress, looking terrified yet regal, followed by the moment Alex placed the necklace on her. The headline ran in bold red letters, "The Cinderella of Queens. Billionaire mechanic reveals secret wife." "Oh my God," Sarah whispered. "They know where we live?" "They do," Alex said grimly. "Look outside." Sarah crept to the window and peeked through the blinds. Her breath hitched. The street below, usually occupied by a few stray cats and a double-parked delivery truck, was a zoo. News vans were parked bumper to bumper. There were at least 50 photographers aiming telephoto lenses at their building. A crowd of onlookers was holding up phones. "We can't go out there," Sarah said, shrinking back. "I have a shift at the diner at 11. I can't call in sick. Sheila is already short-handed." Alex let out a short, incredulous laugh. He took her hands. "Sarah, honey, you don't have to work at the diner anymore. You own the building the diner is in. I bought the block this morning." Sarah stared at him. "You... what?" "I wanted to make sure they couldn't evict you for the media circus," Alex said with a shrug. "But that's not the point. The point is, we have to move. Security is on their way to extract us. The helicopter is waiting at the rooftop of the hospital, 3 blocks over." "Helicopter?" Sarah felt the room spinning. "Alex, this is too fast. Yesterday, I was worrying about the electric bill. Today, we're taking helicopters?" "I know." Alex's voice softened. He stroked her hair. "I know it's scary. I tried to protect you from this part of my world, the vultures, the noise. But Brad and Jessica forced my hand. I couldn't let them treat you like dirt." At the mention of their names, Sarah's stomach clenched. What happened to them? Alex's expression darkened. He picked up his phone and tapped the screen. Jessica was fired via email at 6 a.m. Vogue released a statement distancing themselves from her classist rhetoric. She's currently trending on Twitter, and not in a good way. She's been canceled. And Brad? Brad is complicating things, Alex said, a muscle twitching in his jaw. He didn't go home last night. He went to his office. He's been making calls. He's cornered, Sarah, and a cornered rat bites. What can he do? Sarah asked. You own the bank that holds his loans. He can't hurt me financially, Alex said, but he can try to hurt you. He knows your history. He knows about your dad, about college. He's going to try to spin a narrative that you're a fraud, that you manipulated me. Sarah straightened up. The fear in her chest began to harden into something else, something like anger. She looked at the green silk dress hanging on the back of the door, the dress she had made with her own hands. Let him try, Sarah said softly. Alex looked at her, surprised by the steel in her voice. I didn't manipulate anyone, Alex. I loved a mechanic. I scrubbed grease out of your fingernails. I clipped coupons so we could afford steak once a month. If he wants to tell the world I'm a gold digger, let him. The truth is louder. Alex smiled, a genuine, proud smile. That's my queen. Now, get dressed. Not the diner uniform. Put on something comfortable. We're going to war. Across town, in the sterile, glass-walled office of Montgomery Holdings, Bradford Montgomery was sweating through his second shirt of the day. His office was in shambles. Files were scattered across the floor. He had smashed his tablet against the wall an hour ago when he saw the stock price of his company plummeting. The market had reacted to the rumor that Sterling Enterprises was pulling its backing. Mr. Montgomery, his assistant, a young woman who looked terrified, poked her head in. Mr. Sterling's lawyers are on line 1, and the FBI is in the lobby. The FBI? Brad's face went white. Tell them to wait. Tell them I'm in a meeting. He slammed the door and locked it. He was hyperventilating. It wasn't just the loan. The loan was supposed to cover the hole in the accounts, the $3 million he had borrowed from the company pension fund to pay for his gambling debts and Jessica's trips to street tropes. Without the Sterling refinancing, the auditors would look closer. And if they looked closer, he was going to prison. Think, Brad, think, he muttered, pacing the room. He poured himself a drink, his hands shaking so badly the scotch splashed onto the carpet. He needed leverage. He needed something to make Alex Sterling back off. He needed to trade. Sarah. He pulled out his phone. He had dug up everything he could find on Sarah Jenkins. It wasn't much. Sick father. Dropped out of NYU. Waitress. No criminal record. No scandals. She was disgustingly wholesome. But he didn't need a real scandal. He just needed a story dirty enough to scare Alex. He dialed a number. It was a contact he kept for emergencies. A sleazy private investigator named Fletcher, who had connections to the worst tabloids in the city. Fletcher, Brad barked, I need a job done. Immediate release. I want you to run a story that Sarah Jenkins was a high-end escort before she met Sterling. Say she targeted him. Say she's a con artist. You got proof? Fletcher's gravelly voice asked. I don't need proof, Brad screamed. I need a headline. I need to muddy the waters. If Sterling wants to protect his precious little wife's reputation, he'll have to negotiate with me. Run it. I'll wire you 10 grand. Done, Fletcher said. Brad hung up, a twisted smile forming on his face. It was a Hail Mary, but it might work. Billionaires hated scandal. Alex would pay to make it go away. He would reinstate the loan. He unlocked the office door, feeling a surge of false confidence. He adjusted his tie and walked out to the lobby to face the FBI. He would stall them until the story broke. But he never made it to the lobby. As the elevator doors opened on the ground floor, he wasn't met by agents. He was met by a camera crew, and standing in front of them, flanked by security, was Alex Sterling and Sarah. Brad froze. The lobby fell silent. The receptionist stopped typing. Going somewhere, Brad? Alex asked. His voice was calm, conversational, which made it infinitely more terrifying. You can't be here, Brad stammered, backing up against the elevator wall. This is private property. Actually, Alex said, pulling a document from his jacket pocket. As of 10 minutes ago, Sterling Enterprises acquired a majority stake in Montgomery Holdings via a hostile takeover of your outstanding debt. Technically, I'm your boss. Brad's knees gave out. He slid down the wall. No. And, Alex continued, stepping closer, looming over him. My security team intercepted a wire transfer and a phone call to a Mr. Fletcher. Something about a fabricated story regarding my wife? Sarah stepped forward. She was wearing jeans and a simple white blouse, her hair in a ponytail. She looked nothing like the glamorous figure from the night before, but she looked powerful. She looked down at the man who had mocked her shoes, the man who had tried to destroy her reputation because he was too weak to face his own failures. You wanted to tell a story about me, Brad? Sarah asked. Her voice was clear and steady. The camera crews leaned in. Go ahead, Sarah said. Tell them how you tried to blackmail us. Tell them how you treated me when you thought I was poor. Tell them who you really are. Brad looked at the cameras, then at Sarah. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. The bully was gone. All that was left was a scared, pathetic criminal. He has nothing to say, Alex said to the cameras. He turned to the two men in suits standing by the entrance, the FBI agents. He's all yours, gentlemen. We have all the documentation regarding the pension fund embezzlement ready for you. Embezzlement? Brad squeaked. You didn't think I'd buy a company without checking the books, did you? Alex smirked. You're not just broke, Brad. You're looking at 20 years. As the agents moved in to handcuff Brad, the cameras flashed wildly. Sarah watched him being led away. She didn't feel triumph. She didn't feel joy. She just felt a heavy weight lifting off her shoulders. Are you okay? Alex asked, turning his back on the scene, focusing entirely on her. I am, Sarah said, and she realized she meant it. I really am. Good, Alex said, because there is one more person we need to visit. Who? You said you had a shift at the diner. Alex checked his watch. It's 10:45. We can still make it. Alex? Sarah laughed, a sound of pure relief. You bought the building? I don't think I need to clock in. No, Alex shook his head. We're not going there to work. We're going there because Sheila and the other girls have been your family when you didn't have one, and I think they deserve to meet the guy who's been stealing their best waitress. Sarah smiled, tears pricking her eyes again. This was why she loved him. Not the billions, not the diamonds. This. Okay, she said. Let's go to the diner. But as they walked out of the building, hand in hand, Sarah didn't notice the black sedan parked across the street. She didn't notice the woman sitting in the back seat, watching them with eyes that burned with a cold, calculating fury. Jessica Winthrop hadn't been arrested. She hadn't been embezzling money. She had just been humiliated, fired, and cast out of society. And unlike Brad, she wasn't stupid. She knew she couldn't attack Alex Sterling directly. She watched the car pull away. She pulled out her phone and dialed a number. Hello? A voice answered. Daily Mail tip line. I don't want to sell a story, Jessica whispered, her voice trembling with hate. I want to give you a location. Sarah Sterling is heading to Sal's Diner in Queens, and I have information about a health code violation that's going to make her Woman of the People Act crumble. Jessica hung up. She wasn't going to invent a lie. She was going to destroy Sarah's sanctuary. If I can't be a queen, Jessica muttered to the empty car, then I'll burn the kingdom down. Sal's Diner smelled of burnt coffee, bacon grease, and home. It was a smell that had permeated Sarah's clothes for 5 years, a scent she used to scrub off her skin with lemon juice. Now, stepping through the glass door with a billionaire holding her hand, it smelled like victory. The bell above the door jingled. The lunchtime rush was in full swing. Truck drivers, nurses on break, and construction workers filled the booths. Sarah, Sheila, a 60-year-old waitress with a beehive hairdo and a heart of gold, dropped a tray of ketchup bottles. She rushed over, wiping her hands on her apron, and enveloped Sarah in a hug that squeezed the air out of her lungs. We saw the news, Sheila cried, pulling back to look at her. Honey, you look like a movie star. And who is this? The mystery mechanic? Alex stepped forward, smiling warmly. Alex Sterling, Nice to finally meet the woman who taught Sarah how to carry 3 plates on one arm. The diner went quiet. The regulars' men who had tipped Sarah dollar bills and told her jokes to cheer her up stared at Alex with wide eyes. Drinks are on the house, Sheila announced, beaming. But the celebration was short-lived. The door flew open with a violent crash. The jingle of the bell was drowned out by the aggressive shutter clicks of cameras. A wall of paparazzi pushed into the small entryway, blinding the patrons. And leading the charge, wearing dark sunglasses and a trench coat like a villain in a noir film, was Jessica Winthrop. "There she is!" Jessica shouted, pointing a manicured finger at Sarah, the billionaire princess pretending to be one of the people. Alex moved to step in front of Sarah, his face darkening, but Sarah put a hand on his chest. "No," her eyes said. "This one is mine." Jessica marched into the center of the diner, sneering at the worn linoleum and the cracked vinyl booths. "You think you're so special because you married money?" Jessica spat, playing to the cameras. "But you're still just a waitress serving slop in a health hazard. I have sources, Sarah. I know about the rats in the basement. I know this place is a cesspool." She turned to the cameras, her voice rising theatrically. "This is where the future Mrs. Sterling comes from, a place that poisons its customers. She's a fraud." The diner fell silent. The regulars looked at their food, then at Sarah. The accusation hung in the air, heavy and ugly. Jessica smiled. She didn't need facts. She just needed to ruin the moment. She needed to make Sarah look dirty. Sarah stepped forward. She didn't shout. She didn't cry. She walked over to the counter, picked up a coffee pot, and poured a fresh cup. "Jessica," Sarah said, her voice calm and carrying through the silence. "You've never worked a day in your life, have you?" Jessica blinked. "Excuse me? You don't know what it's like to stand on your feet for 12 hours, Sarah continued, walking toward her. "You don't know what it's like to know every customer's name, to know that Mr. Henderson, in booth 4, needs extra napkins because his hands shake, or that Brenda, in booth 2, is working 3 jobs to put her son through school." Sarah stopped inches from Jessica. "There are no rats in the basement, Jessica. I scrub that basement myself every Tuesday night. This place isn't a cesspool. It's a community. It's honest." Sarah gestured to the people in the diner, the truckers, the nurses, the tired parents. "These people have more dignity in their calloused hands than you have in your entire trust fund. You came here to shame me? To make me feel small because I served coffee?" Sarah smiled, and it was the smile of a woman who finally knew her own worth. "I'm proud of this diner. I'm proud of where I came from, because it taught me something you'll never understand. You can't buy class, and you certainly can't buy respect." Sheila slammed her hand on the counter. "Damn right?" "Yeah," a truck driver shouted, standing up. "Sarah's the best thing about this place." "Get out," another patron yelled. The mood in the room shifted instantly. The common people Jessica had tried to use as props were now standing up, forming a wall between her and Sarah. Jessica looked around, panic setting in. The cameras she had brought were now capturing her humiliation, not Sarah's. I, Jessica stammered, backing up. "And one more thing," Sarah said, her voice turning steel cold. "As the new owner of this building, I reserve the right to refuse service. You're trespassing." "You bought the diner?" Jessica gasped. "We did," Alex said, stepping up beside Sarah and wrapping an arm around her waist. "And we're keeping the staff. But we are definitely upgrading the security to keep the trash out." The diner erupted in cheers. Jessica turned and fled, pushing through the paparazzi, her heels clicking frantically on the pavement as she ran from the laughter of the people she deemed beneath her. Sarah watched her go, then looked up at Alex. "You okay?" he asked. "I'm better than okay," Sarah said, leaning her head on his shoulder. "I'm home." 1 year later, the Sterling Foundation Gala was once again the event of the season. But this time, the guest list was different. There were billionaires, yes, but there were also community leaders, teachers, and the staff of Sal's Diner, who were sitting at the VIP table, wearing tuxedos and gowns that Sarah had designed herself. Sarah stood on the balcony of the ballroom, looking out at the New York skyline. She wore the sterling star around her neck, but her hand rested on her stomach, where a new life was beginning to grow. Alex walked up behind her, slipping his arms around her. "They're waiting for your speech," he whispered. "They want to hear from the woman who changed the face of charity in New York." "I was just thinking," Sarah said softly, "about that night, about the $20 Brad gave you." "I still have it," Alex chuckled. "I framed it. It hangs in my office to remind me." "Remind you of what?" "That the richest man in the room isn't the one with the most money," Alex said, kissing her cheek. "It's the one who has the queen." Sarah turned in his arms, the city lights reflecting in her eyes. "And the queen," she smiled, "is the one who isn't afraid to get her hands dirty." They walked back inside together, ready to face the world not as a billionaire and a waitress, but as partners, equals. The mocking laughter was gone, replaced by a legacy that would last forever. And that is how Sarah went from serving coffee to running an empire, proving that true elegance isn't about the label on your dress, it's about the strength of your character. Brad and Jessica learned the hard way that when you try to bury someone, you better make sure they aren't a seed. Because Sarah didn't just survive the dirt, she bloomed in it. This story reminds us that no matter how hard people try to put you down, your worth is defined by you, not them. Never let anyone treat you like a discount item when you know you're priceless. If this story moved you, or if you've ever had to stand up to a bully in your own life, hit that like button right now. It helps us share these powerful stories with more people who need to hear them. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. We have a new story coming next week about a homeless man who returned a lost wallet and got a reward that changed his life forever. You won't want to miss it. What would you have done if you were in Sarah's shoes? Would you have forgiven Brad, or did he get what he deserved? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.